Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. As we move into this Friday afternoon, we have a marginal risk of severe weather via the Storm Prediction Center covering much of New Jersey. Northeastern Pennsylvania actually even extends down as far south as Reading and Philadelphia in that marginal risk zone. And we'll just give it a little bit of a wider view so we can see how far north it extends. The marginal risk runs up the Hudson Valley north of I-90 and east into central Massachusetts, almost all of Connecticut, and Long Island in that marginal risk zone. We do have a general risk of thunderstorms extending on either side of that. The Storm Prediction Center indicating the possibility that we could see a few isolated severe thunderstorms develop this afternoon and evening. They're not expecting any kind of organized or even semi-organized line. They're talking about maybe some isolated cells developing given the atmosphere that we're in. And it is a very warm atmosphere indeed. As we check out midday temperatures, up to 90 degrees around New York City, 91 at Philadelphia, 93 at Baltimore International Airport. Washington, D.C. is at 91, low 90s across southern Pennsylvania. You move up into Connecticut, where they're north of, just slightly north of this frontal boundary that's basically sagging its way southward. We're seeing temperatures in the upper 70s in the northern part of the state and low and middle 80s as you go south. The Hudson Valley is seeing temperatures mostly in the low 80s. And we're going to be keeping our eyes now, of course, on the radar, which will be acting up as we go through this afternoon. We're beginning to see some cells developing in upstate New York and into Connecticut. For now, they are scattered in nature. I think we're going to probably wind up getting a couple of clusters in there as this whole area moves on to the southeast. And certainly from the standpoint of the lower Hudson Valley, southern Connecticut on south and west, we're looking at ample daytime heating and pretty soggy air. The dew points are running quite high. Dew points are in the upper 60s and even a few spots showing 70-degree dew points. So we're talking about a pretty juiced up atmosphere here and just enough of a mechanism with this cold front and a little bit of a shortwave trough moving down from the north, so that will trigger off some thunderstorms. Meanwhile, you look at the satellite, the edge of the clouds right at about New York City. South and west of there, it's mostly sunny, and that's why temperatures have zoomed up the way they have. And of course, with this boundary pushing southward, you've got this east-west band of clouds that will gradually sink southward as we go through the afternoon. There's a little bit of a low that's out in the Atlantic. You can see the curl here, by the way. It's not tropical, but it's kind of interesting that circulation that is out there. It's all part of this mess. That old upper low that was sitting in New England all week long has finally moved away. Seeing a few weak systems around the country, much of the East Coast, up and down the East Coast, till you get to South Georgia, northern Florida. The weather actually is pretty good and very summery. Big swirl there, big storm off the West Coast, sending some energy into the Northwest, but much of the western part of the U.S. Dealing with some summery weather. Nothing extraordinary. We are seeing the buildup of some clouds up in the northern Rockies and northern plains, so likely there will be some thunderstorms in that part of the country. I'm just going to go back to the radar and move down to the south. Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, pretty quiet at midday. Some scattered cells showing up in Florida, some clusters of thunderstorms moving southward in Louisiana and Mississippi. A little bit of scattered activity in the central plains and seeing a couple of scattered showers up in the northern plains and also down in parts of the southwest, a couple of showers here and there. So here's how it's going to play out for the rest of the day. I brought up the HRRR model, and as we move through this afternoon, we're going to see these thunderstorms bubble up, and some of them could be strong. This is at 7 o'clock tonight. So it's mostly mid and late afternoon for areas for New York City, Long Island, and Connecticut. South and west of there, by the way, the activity looks widely scattered. So we're not really anticipating too much outside of that marginal risk zone. And about 8 or 9 o'clock, the bulk of it comes on through. And of course, after that, it just weakens as the frontal boundary begins to sink to the south. And then we can transition over to the rest of the holiday weekend. So I am thinking that uh, Saturday should be a pretty decent day overall. Not expecting any major issues. It actually will be a little bit cooler on Saturday because we will have a bit of a northeast wind. Going to just keep an eye to see how much cloud cover we have. I'll go for a mix of sun and clouds for now. And as you see by tomorrow evening on the GFS, really not showing much of anything in terms of development. Now, late Sunday into Sunday night, we've got a weak front that approaches. Very little with that. So Sunday will be a very warm and somewhat humid day. And then as we move into next week, no real challenges other than maybe some pop-up storms late Monday and again late Tuesday, and perhaps a bit more on Wednesday with something stronger moving into the east. Now, there's some question here later next week whether that frontal boundary stalls along the east coast or not, and this is why we suddenly start to see more widespread showers late next week. We'll have to see if that plays out or not. There's some question. The hot air that's going to be building to our west is going to try to move to the east, but there is a little bit of a short wave that kind of splits the difference here between an upper high off the east coast and an upper high back through Kansas. So that's the one fly in the ointment maybe for late next week. But just judging from the upper air here, we're in pretty good shape once we get through whatever we have to handle late this afternoon and into tonight. And as for temperatures for the remainder of the weekend, let's just give you a quick look here for Saturday. From Northeast Virginia to southern New England, we are looking at highs that are going to be pretty warm with this, depending on how much sun, mid to upper 80s, low 90s when you get down into Maryland and Virginia. And for Sunday, we are looking at highs that will be mostly in the 80s to around 90 degrees, and we're going to continue that maybe upper 80s and low 90s when we move into Monday. And let's not forget this afternoon, because to the south, where there's going to be quite a bit of sun and very little in the way of shower and thunderstorm activity, we could see temperatures reach the middle and upper 90s from Northeast Virginia on up into Maryland, middle 90s, southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and we've already reached the 90-degree mark at New York City. But as you go further north, you start to deal with the issues of the clouds and the frontal system and the chance for showers and thunderstorms. No Joe and Joe show tonight or tomorrow. We're going to perhaps do something live later today if the thunderstorm activity calls for it. Otherwise, it'll be Sunday morning's Joe and Joe Weather Show at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Don't forget the Joe and Joe Weather Show and Weather in 5 are now available in podcast format on Spotify. So if you're into podcasts, you can go ahead and listen to the show that way. You do it while you're exercising, while you're walking, or maybe you could even do it in order to get you to fall asleep. Who knows? All right, everybody, I hope you're enjoying your holiday weekend. Happy 4th of July, and we'll keep you up to date on any development with the severe weather later on today.